Walk over to the sunniest window in your house right now. Stand a few feet away from it. Don't touch the glass. Just hold the back of your hand near the window on a bright afternoon. Can you feel that warmth? That isn't hot air from outside leaking into your home. That's sunlight. It has already passed through the glass. It has already entered your room. And once it's inside, your air conditioner has only one job left. Fight it. Maybe you bought a window air conditioner a few summers ago. A nice one. Quiet. Energy efficient. Powerful enough to cool the room. You plugged it in. Closed every window. Pulled the curtains shut. And every afternoon, right about the time the sun reaches that side of the house, you hear the compressor kick on again. And again. And again. The room gets cooler. The electric meter spins faster. And every month another bill arrives. Most people think that's simply how summer works. Hot outside, cold inside, electricity in between. Now let me tell you about something you'll see almost everywhere in Japan once the weather begins warming. Walk through a quiet neighborhood in Kyoto. Visit an old townhouse in Kanazawa. Travel past a small tea shop in Nara. Or even look closely at many modern homes during the hottest months of the year. You'll notice something hanging outside the windows. Not inside, outside. Long curtains made from thin strips of bamboo. Sometimes woven reeds. Light enough to move with the breeze. Dense enough to cast shade. The Japanese call them sudare. Larger freestanding versions are known as yoshizu. At first glance, they don't look like much. Just bamboo. Just reeds tied together with string. Nothing electronic. Nothing mechanical. No fan. No compressor. No refrigerant. No monthly payment. Most visitors walk right past them without giving them another thought. But those simple screens are solving a problem before the air conditioner ever has to. And that is the secret. They don't cool the room. They stop much of the unwanted sunlight from entering the room in the first place. That sounds like a small difference. It isn't. It's the difference between catching rain outside your house or mopping up the floor after it has already flooded the kitchen. Most modern cooling systems begin working after heat has entered the building. Sudare begin working before that happens. That simple change in timing makes all the difference. Japan has always lived with difficult summers. Much of the country experiences high humidity, long stretches of hot weather, bright afternoon sun. Before electricity, there were no compressors humming beneath windows, no thermostats, no central air. People still had to sleep, cook, work, raise families, and somehow make their homes comfortable enough to live in. So instead of asking how to make colder air, they asked a different question. How do we keep unnecessary heat from entering the house at all? That question shaped Japanese architecture for centuries. Traditional homes often featured deep roof overhangs, sliding paper screens, raised wooden floors, open floor plans, carefully positioned gardens, cross ventilation, and hanging outside many windows. Sudare. Everything worked together. Not as separate inventions, as one complete system. Modern houses often separate these ideas. One appliance handles cooling, another handles ventilation, another blocks sunlight. Traditional Japanese builders understood something simpler. Every little improvement reduced the burden on the next one. Shade reduced heat. Breezes removed warmth. Open spaces allowed air to circulate naturally. The house itself participated in cooling, not just the equipment inside it. The remarkable thing about sudare is how ordinary they are. They don't require electricity. No installation crew arrives with power tools. No permit. No maintenance contract. You simply hang them outside the window where the afternoon sun strikes hardest. That's all. The bamboo strips create thousands of tiny shadows. Sunlight that would normally strike the glass directly now meets the screen first. Part of it reflects away. Part of it is absorbed by the bamboo. Air moving between the thin slats carries much of that warmth away before it ever reaches the window. Meanwhile, light still enters. You can still see outside. Fresh air can still pass through. Privacy even improves slightly during the daytime. Compare that with heavy curtains. Curtains certainly block sunlight, but only after the sunlight has already passed through the glass. By then, the window itself has already become warm. The air trapped between the curtain and the glass heats up. Eventually, much of that warmth still finds its way into the room. Sudare interrupt the process earlier. Outside, where the unwanted heat belongs. This idea appears surprisingly obvious once someone explains it. Yet many people spend hundreds of dollars cooling sunlight they could have shaded for only a few dollars. Perhaps that's because modern life often encourages us to solve problems with larger machines, bigger air conditioners, stronger fans, higher energy consumption. The Japanese solution asks a quieter question. Can we reduce the problem before reaching for the machine? That philosophy appears everywhere in Japanese design, not only in cooling. Think about a Japanese garden. Nothing appears excessive. Each stone, each tree, each pathway serves a purpose. The goal isn't to overpower nature. It's to guide it gently. Sudare follow exactly the same principle. They don't fight the sun. They filter it. Anyone who has stood beneath a tree on a hot afternoon already understands this feeling. The air beneath the tree isn't magically refrigerated. Yet somehow it feels noticeably more comfortable. The leaves intercept sunlight. Moving air continues flowing beneath them. Your body no longer absorbs the full intensity of direct solar radiation. Sudare creates something surprisingly similar beside a window. Not identical, but based on the same simple principle. Shade first, cooling second. Another reason these bamboo screens remain popular is that they change with the seasons. When autumn arrives, many families simply roll them up, store them away. Winter sunshine once again reaches the windows, helping warm the home naturally during colder months. Nothing permanent, nothing complicated. The house adapts. Spring returns. The screens come back. Summer passes. They disappear again. The rhythm follows nature instead of resisting it. That flexibility reflects centuries of practical thinking. Japanese homes traditionally changed with the seasons. Different floor coverings, different bedding, different clothing, different cooling methods. The goal wasn't maintaining exactly one indoor temperature every day of the year. It was living comfortably with changing weather. Modern technology sometimes makes us forget that adaptation itself can be remarkably effective. Of course, sudare aren't miracles. EAC. They won't transform a blazing attic into an icebox. They won't replace air conditioning during every heat wave. No honest craftsman would claim otherwise. But that's never been their purpose. Their purpose is simpler. Reduce unnecessary solar heat. Create shade. Allow airflow. Make the room easier to keep comfortable. And perhaps most importantly, reduce how hard everything else must work. Think of it this way. Imagine carrying heavy groceries up a long flight of stairs. Would you rather begin with 10 bags or only 6? Either way, you'll reach the top. But one journey demands far less effort. Sudare reduce the load before the climb even begins. That's why comparisons between a $6 bamboo screen and a $600 window air conditioner often miss the point. They're solving different parts of the same problem. One prevents much of the unwanted heat from entering. The other removes heat after it has already arrived. Used together, each helps the other. Used separately, each still has value. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden inside these humble bamboo screens isn't really about cooling. It's about timing. Stopping a problem early often requires far less effort than solving it later. Japanese builders understood that long before electricity transformed modern life. Their solution wasn't expensive. It wasn't complicated. It didn't require patents. Only observation, patience, and a willingness to work with nature instead of constantly struggling against it. 300 years later, those same woven bamboo screens still hang outside homes across Japan every summer, not because people forgot to modernize, but because simple ideas that genuinely work rarely become obsolete. Before watching this video, had you ever seen sudare or yoshizu, or is this the first time you've heard of bamboo screens being hung outside a window instead of inside? Let me know in the comments below. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear what surprised you most. By now, you might be wondering something very simple. If these bamboo screens work so well, why don't we see them hanging outside every house? The answer has very little to do with how well they work. It has everything to do with how we think about comfort. For the last 100 years, most of the world has learned to cool a room the same way. Close the windows. Turn on the air conditioner. Wait for the temperature to drop. It's a perfectly reasonable solution. But it begins only after the room has already become hot. Traditional Japanese homes approach the problem differently. The question wasn't, how do we cool this room? It was, how do we keep this room from becoming hot in the first place? That one question changed everything. The answer wasn't hidden inside a machine. It was growing in fields. Bamboo, reeds, natural materials that had been part of Japanese daily life for centuries. Long before electricity reached the countryside, bamboo was everywhere. People built baskets with it, fishing poles, garden fences, window blinds, tea utensils, water pipes, even musical instruments. It was light, flexible, strong, and perhaps most importantly, it grew quickly. Unlike hardwood trees that required decades to mature, many species of bamboo reached usable size within only a few years. For generations, it became one of Japan's most practical building materials. The same was true of reeds. Growing naturally along rivers, wetlands, and lakes, reeds were harvested every year after they had dried. Once bundled together, they created surprisingly durable panels, capable of blocking direct sunlight while still allowing air to pass freely between the stems. This combination gave birth to two closely related traditions, sudare and yoshizu. Although people often use the names interchangeably, they aren't exactly the same. Sudare are the hanging screens, long, flexible blinds woven from thin bamboo strips, reeds, or similar natural materials. They hang directly outside windows, verandas, or sliding doors. When summer arrives, they're lowered into place. When autumn returns, they're rolled up and stored until the following year. Yoshizu are different. Instead of hanging vertically from above, they're larger freestanding reed screens. Often supported by simple wooden frames, they lean against the outside of a building, creating a broad wall of shade before sunlight ever reaches the structure. Both serve the same purpose: stop the sun, keep the breeze. That balance is remarkably important. Imagine replacing every sunny window with solid plywood. The room certainly becomes darker, but it also becomes gloomy. Fresh air disappears. The connection with the garden vanishes. Sudare avoid that problem beautifully. Stand inside a traditional Japanese room on a bright summer afternoon. Sunlight filters gently through hundreds of narrow gaps. The harsh glare disappears. Instead, the room fills with soft, golden light. You can still watch the trees moving outside. You can still see visitors approaching. You can still enjoy the breeze. Everything feels connected. Nothing feels shut away. This relationship between indoors and outdoors has always been central to Japanese architecture. Traditional homes rarely tried to isolate people completely from nature. Instead, they blurred the boundary. Sliding doors opened entire walls. Verandas extended living spaces outdoors. Gardens became part of everyday life. Sudare fit naturally into this philosophy. They didn't block nature. They filtered it. Walk beneath a grove of bamboo on a sunny afternoon, and you'll notice something interesting. The light reaching the ground is never harsh. Wind continues moving freely through the stalks. Shade shifts gently as the leaves sway overhead. Sudare recreate a surprisingly similar experience beside the home. The sunlight isn't eliminated. It's softened. The breeze isn't blocked. It's welcomed. That gentle movement becomes another hidden advantage. Unlike heavy shutters or rigid panels, bamboo screens move with the wind. As air passes through the narrow gaps, the screens sway slightly. Tiny changes in light and shadow dance across the floor throughout the day. The house feels alive, not sealed inside an artificial environment. Alive. There is another detail many visitors overlook: the space between the screen and the window. That gap matters enormously. If the screen touched the glass directly, much of the absorbed heat would simply transfer into the window. Instead, Japanese builders leave open space between them. Air moves continuously through that gap. Warm air rises naturally. Fresh air replaces it from below. Without fans, without motors, without electricity. Nature quietly carries away much of the heat before it reaches the glass. This principle appears again and again throughout traditional Japanese design. Don't trap heat. Give it somewhere to go. Roof spaces were ventilated. Raised floors allowed air circulation underneath. Sliding panels encouraged cross-ventilation. Sudare simply became another piece of the same puzzle. One thoughtful decision supporting another. Another fascinating tradition often accompanies these bamboo screens: morning watering. During the hottest months, people sometimes sprinkle water across stone pathways, courtyards, or streets outside their homes. This custom is called uchimizu. As the water slowly evaporates, it creates a subtle cooling effect around the house. Combined with the shade from sudare and the movement of fresh air, the surroundings feel noticeably more comfortable. None of these techniques accomplishes the entire job alone. Together, they create something remarkably effective. That's perhaps the greatest misunderstanding modern audiences have when they first encounter traditional cooling. They're searching for one miracle solution, one device, one invention. Traditional Japanese homes relied upon systems, many small improvements working together: shade, airflow, vegetation, roof design, building orientation, natural materials. Each contributes a little. Together, they contribute a great deal. Modern engineering follows the same principle. A fuel-efficient car isn't efficient because of one remarkable component. Hundreds of small improvements combine to produce better performance. Japanese homes approached cooling in much the same way. Perhaps that's why these simple bamboo screens have survived for over 300 years. No one expected them to replace every other method. They were never designed to. They were designed to make everything else easier. Even today, many families living in modern apartments continue hanging sudare outside west-facing balconies or windows. Not because they reject air conditioning. Quite the opposite. Because reducing direct sunlight means the air conditioner doesn't have to work quite as hard. The room often feels more pleasant. Glare decreases. Privacy improves. Electricity use may also decrease simply because less unwanted solar heat enters the room in the first place. Notice something important. No one needed to invent new physics. No expensive breakthrough. No revolutionary technology. Only careful observation. Stand beneath a tree. Notice the shade. Watch how breezes still pass through leaves. Then ask yourself, could a building borrow the same idea? That question eventually became sudare. The remarkable thing isn't how complicated the answer became. It's how beautifully simple it remained. Today, manufacturers produce plastic blinds, reflective films, tinted glass, motorized shades. Many perform their jobs extremely well. Yet every summer across Japan, countless homeowners still hang woven bamboo outside their windows. Not because they cannot afford modern technology, because this ancient solution continues making sense. Lightweight, affordable, reusable, easy to repair, made largely from renewable natural materials. Sometimes progress isn't replacing the old idea. It's recognizing the old idea never stopped working. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside these humble screens. Comfort doesn't always begin with colder air. Sometimes it begins with better shade. And better shade has been hanging outside Japanese windows for centuries. If you had one window that gets blazing afternoon sun every day, would you rather hang a simple bamboo screen outside it or rely only on your air conditioner? Tell me your answer in the comments below. I read every one, and I'd love to hear how you deal with summer heat. 300 years have passed since Japanese families first began hanging bamboo screens outside their homes every summer. Empires have changed. Cities have grown into forests of concrete and glass. Air conditioners have become smaller, quieter, and more powerful than anyone living during the Edo period could ever have imagined. Yet if you visit Japan during the hottest months of the year, you'll still see sudare gently swaying outside windows. Not because people refuse to embrace modern technology. Japan is one of the most technologically advanced countries on Earth. It manufactures some of the world's most efficient air conditioners. Many homes use smart thermostats and highly insulated construction. But despite all of that, the bamboo screens remain. That tells us something important. The best ideas rarely become obsolete. They simply become part of something bigger. Today's homeowners sometimes ask an interesting question. If I already own an air conditioner, why should I bother with a bamboo screen? The answer is surprisingly simple. Because every ray of sunlight you prevent from entering your home is one less ray your air conditioner has to deal with later. Think about wearing a hat on a sunny day. The hat doesn't cool your body. It simply prevents some of the sun's energy from reaching your head in the first place. As a result, you feel more comfortable. Sudare work in much the same way. They don't create cold air. They reduce unnecessary heat before it enters the room. That distinction matters. Many people make the mistake of hanging thick curtains inside the house and assuming they've solved the same problem. Curtains certainly have value. They reduce glare. They improve privacy. They can even slow some heat transfer. But by the time sunlight reaches an indoor curtain, it has already passed through the glass. The window has already absorbed heat. The space between the curtain and the glass has already begun warming. An outdoor screen interrupts that process much earlier. That's why traditional Japanese builders insisted the shade belonged outside the window whenever possible. The placement mattered just as much as the material itself. Another common misunderstanding is believing darker materials always create hotter homes. In reality, what matters is where the heat goes. A bamboo screen hanging outside the window absorbs some sunlight, but because it's exposed to open air on both sides, wind carries much of that warmth away before it reaches the building. The screen becomes part of the outdoor environment instead of allowing all that solar energy to enter the room. It's a simple idea, yet one based on careful observation rather than complicated engineering. If you decide to try this approach yourself, remember that placement is everything. Observe your home for a few days. Which windows receive the strongest afternoon sun? Which rooms become uncomfortable first? Those are usually the places where exterior shading offers the greatest benefit. Even small improvements can make a noticeable difference in comfort by reducing glare and limiting direct solar gain. Some homeowners combine bamboo screens with climbing plants grown on trellises. Others position potted trees where they cast afternoon shade. Some add awnings or pergolas. Each follows the same principle: create shade before sunlight reaches the glass. One fascinating aspect of Japanese design is that these solutions rarely depend on a single expensive purchase. Instead, they build comfort layer by layer. A roof overhang, a bamboo screen, good cross ventilation, a shaded garden, natural materials, sliding windows that encourage airflow. No single feature performs every job. Together, they create a home that works with the climate rather than constantly struggling against it. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside sudare. For generations, we've been encouraged to think that comfort comes from consuming more energy. Bigger machines, higher power bills, more complicated systems. Japanese builders quietly asked a different question. What if we simply prevented part of the problem from happening in the first place? Sometimes the smartest solution isn't stronger cooling, it's better shade. That's a lesson that extends far beyond windows. The same principle appears in gardening, architecture, farming, and even daily life. Prevent small problems before they become large ones. Solve challenges as early as possible. Nature often rewards those who observe before they act. There is also something deeply satisfying about the simplicity of these bamboo screens. No software updates, no replacement filters, no compressors, no circuit boards. Just woven bamboo, a few cords, and centuries of practical experience. If a screen eventually wears out after years of service, it can often be replaced at very little cost using renewable natural materials. That quiet practicality explains why sudare continue appearing every summer across Japan. Not because they're fashionable, not because they're nostalgic, because they remain useful. And usefulness never goes out of style. The next time the afternoon sun begins pouring through your windows, take a moment before reaching for the thermostat. Look at where the sunlight is entering. Ask yourself a simple question. Can I stop some of that sunshine before it gets inside? Sometimes the answer isn't hidden inside an expensive appliance. Sometimes it's hanging quietly outside the window, woven from bamboo, doing exactly what it has done for more than 300 years. I hope you enjoyed discovering this remarkable piece of Japanese wisdom. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Would you spend $6 on a simple bamboo screen before buying another expensive cooling appliance? Or would you still rely entirely on air conditioning? Tell me why. I read every comment, and I always enjoy hearing how people solve summer heat in different parts of the world. And if you enjoy uncovering practical ideas that have stood the test of time, don't forget to subscribe. There are countless forgotten techniques from around the world that still have something valuable to teach us today, and I look forward to exploring them with you in the next video.